land of eternal sun, sea, and sand, the homeland of pharaohs and one of the most popular tourist destinations for residents of the former USSR. I have flown many times for vacation, but now I decided to find out how those who came here on a tour and stayed forever live. In this episode, I will find out where to find a job without knowledge of Arabic, what the salaries are, and how to obtain a long-term visa in Egypt.
Without programs, you won't figure it, you won't find the truth.
We will find out why military personnel guard Christian churches in Egypt, what is allowed for women in Egypt, and how much we can sell our beauty for. How much can we really bargain for? They're so beautiful, let's say 50 Schwermühlen, 50 camels. Later in the video, I will ask why move from a huge city to a deserted desert. I will meet a lot of cats and try to understand why all foreigners get dental treatment specifically in Egypt. It will be painful. In the end, we will be surprised together at how cheaply you can buy an apartment at a resort. How to rent housing at the price of our utilities. And we will see how Egyptians do renovations. Beauty. Beauty. Laughter. Subscribe to YouTube and Instagram and let's fly to the desert. Don't forget that now videos on my channel are released every Saturday morning. I filmed this episode in Hurghada, one of the main resorts in Egypt, alongside Sharm el-Sheikh. Unlike Sharm el-Sheikh, Hurghada is a full-fledged city which lives not only on tourism and never stands still. In addition to the hotel areas, there are entire residential neighborhoods here that resemble an ordinary Middle Eastern city. Additionally, there is an old town here where mostly locals live. People trade whatever they can right by the road and move around for business in these minibuses or mopeds. Old shabby buildings often coexist with new constructions, shops, and the inscriptions are mostly in Arabic because foreigners rarely visit here. I was more struck by how chaotically people drive and cross the roads here, despite the abundance of police. The areas where Russian speakers live look a bit different. There are many fewer people on the streets. The houses around are mostly new, with signs in Russian on the buildings, and you might even see a car like this Lada parked in the area.
Oil-burning houses where people live and where tourists are brought. Of course, a pharmacy, for example, always in 3 languages: Arabic, English, and Russian. Look, there's construction going on. This was recently completed. On this side, those houses are unfinished. The only plus of this area, which I like, is that it is quiet here. This is not a tourist zone. Therefore, there is no constant influx of tourists or foot traffic. Local residents and foreigners living in Hurghada reside here. It's a residential area for us. I can't say whether it's elite or not, but there is a price cap for it. It's cheaper.
This area is more expensive than the old town, but just think about the prices. Elena bought a 90 square meter apartment for $23,000. Here she has a kitchen living room, which is commonly referred to as a reception here, and 2 bedrooms. Additionally, there is a small balcony and, most importantly, her own private roof that can be arranged as she wishes.
You can put up a wall and already make snacks here. Barbecue, winter garden. Please.
You can access the roof both from the common entrance and directly from your apartment. The common roof area is divided among the owners. You can fence off and arrange your own section, and it's completely legal. There are no hot water systems in Hurghada. Water is heated by boilers installed in each apartment, while cold water comes through the pipeline.
People pay for water supply usage. Sometimes there is a stable payment, and sometimes the payment fluctuates according to the cubic meters used. Our house actually has some kind of barrier, and we kind of forget to pay. The only thing we pay for is electricity. For electricity, according to a certain rate and according to the meter readings, what rate That is, electricity in Egypt is more like you won't find out the truth there. Sometimes you receive an electricity bill for £75, which is roughly $4, and sometimes it comes with a recalculation of over $100. This is the latest receipt. Well, it's 2.5 pounds.
255.
Pounds. Yes. Well, I'm that kind of person. I don't save electricity. Last month it was 75. In summer it can be 200 or it can be 1,500.
Gas can be brought into the apartment, but Elena opted out. Gas is installed in about half of the apartments.
I contact the gas company where you pay an initial fee of approximately $300. Yes, they will bring the gas to you over the course of 6 months, God willing. But when they came to install it and started, while all the money was going to break holes and damage all my furniture, I said I would rather use gas cylinders.
There is sand everywhere in Egypt, even in the stairwells. There are also many building materials here because the neighbors are renovating. But there is no one to repair the stairwell itself because many apartments are vacant.
When they well, no one was sitting here. Also inconveniences. On my floor, one neighbor comes and goes. Here, 2 apartments are occupied and 3 are unoccupied. There is no one to make room with him.
And here, the foreman from the neighboring apartment is giving me a tour of the site. You can see how interesting the plumbing pipes are laid out. And here is the view from the bedroom window. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Ha ha ha. The bedroom right. Ha ha ha. The climate in Hurghada is tropical and desert-like. This means that summer lasts all year round. It may not rain for years. Even in January, the air temperature stays above 20 degrees. In Ukraine or Moldova, one can only dream of such weather, which is why many come here for the winter. Especially this winter, when the heating bill in Chisinau, for example, is higher than the entire rent. In winter, an apartment here can be rented for $150. For most of the emigrants I spoke with, the reason for moving was the same.
We just want to spend the winter by the beautiful sea. We are from Odessa, we really love the sea. I was actually born by the sea. And when I arrived at the Red Sea, I fell in love with it like nothing else. I realized that the season is not 3 months, and it turns out you can swim in the sea not for 2 months, but for a whole year. It was a shock for me. And probably the first reason was exactly this. Well in the sun, fruits.
I carry it very proud.
This meat is very cold compared to Hurgada.
That's why I didn't go out. You see, everything there is warm, comfortable, cozy.
Finding a job in Egypt is not easy for an immigrant. Mostly, jobs for our people are only in the tourism sector. So many strive to start their own business and work for themselves. Tanya also came to Hurghada from Ukraine a few years ago to vacation. Yes, she ended up staying here. She got a job as a receptionist in a dental clinic.
I was just here on vacation and stayed.
Wow, really? How is that?
I came, I liked it, and I decided to come here. Many people come here on vacation and then stay.
Clinics operate mostly in the evenings. Prices for services are low. Tourists often decide to get dental work done. There are many dental offices. What's the cost of a filling?
Ultimately, it indeed depends. Perhaps the doctor will determine that.
Well, that's true.
Starting from approximately 450 points.
Nice. Hollywood. Few people look for jobs in Egypt. Many immediately start their own business. And, often, as in Irina's case, they manage to open the business of their dreams. She came to Hurghada from Ukraine almost 20 years ago. Now she has a large stable that houses 20 horses, donkeys, and many other animals. In a nutshell, how did you start working with horses and animals in Egypt?
Happy, she is the girl who lived nearby, saw this stable and heard the sound of many horses. Of course, she posted on social media. Facebook is a great power that can motivate people to take action. Many responded, including me. And so, for a period of 3 long months, we diligently kept and cared for the birds and horses. Then, after that time, I personally came over, carefully took the horses with me, and subsequently returned to make a call for work opportunities. Well, that's how my husband started using his horses. I have always dreamed of having a horse. Well, he gifted something to my mom.
For Irina, this is not just a source of income, She invests her own money and rescues and cares for animals in the surroundings of Hurghada.
It usually happens like this. I get a call on the phone and they say, Ira, there is a horse that is dying. It's hard, as it is hard. And it's absolutely and truly such a big thing, how much you recharge every single day.
As for salaries, they are very low in Egypt. Those who have started their own business earn completely different figures compared to those who make do with seasonal work.
There are a lot of girls who work. Well, in principle, it's not like that. Well, sort of, well. So when tourism was open and everything was well arranged here, those earning money have now, of course, left because there are still no tourists, as they say, like the flow that was before the coronavirus.
I have. My business and my salary is coming in. But when I worked as a hotel administrator, salary started at $400. But that was a long time ago. Now salaries are much lower. But that's because tourism is currently in decline. Those who run their own business are doing very well. Developing a business for those people who know how to do something with their hands. Again, this is the beauty industry. I have a friend who sews beautifully, meaning she has a lot of orders. My second friend cooks very well. Again, there are those who make wonderful cakes. It is easier for them here.
How difficult is it to start your own business in Egypt? Vladimir and Yulia opened their sushi restaurant here. This is their establishment in Hurghada, where they live, expanding the business in the capital of Egypt, Cairo. The name and design of the restaurant were thought out by the spouses themselves. But, as business owners, you cannot work yourselves. You only hire staff. Does it actually work out somehow?
No, in fact you can do it, but there are many nuances of Egyptian legislation. They protect their labor market in this way. In principle, it is their sovereign right. They have the right to make any rules they want. You can obtain a work visa here. It costs quite a significant amount of money and effort. In addition to all the registration data, you need to deposit around $40,000 in the bank, and it's also not a fact that it will be approved. That is, the government must know who you are, the Secret Service must know who you are. If you are just a tourist, then they do not know where your money comes from. You might be a bad person. Maybe you were involved in something wrong. That's why it's not easy to legalize yourself here.
So you apply for an annual work visa and you can be checked for up to 3-4 months. Accordingly, during these 4 months you are not allowed to work, but these months are counted after you receive this visa. Accordingly, you receive it for about 8 months, pay for it for a year, and then this process repeats every year.
As our friends in Cairo said, as they have repeatedly and consistently mentioned, they are blocking all documents of tourists and foreigners.
Right now, in general, documents are an issue. We were very lucky. We got into that period 2 years ago when we rented a space. We were lucky. With the arrival of the new president, the regulation of issuing documents to foreigners was simplified. And we, well, with the help, of course not without the help of a good lawyer, received the documents. Very, very quickly, considering that we tried to do this 7 years ago, and we are trying to do it again now, for our new project in Cairo. And we cannot get it so easily, even though we already have our own business.
Irina, the owner of a mini confectionery, believes that it is important to properly address legal issues. She has been living in Hurghada for about 5 years and owns a Russian cuisine shop where she sells cabbage pies, eclairs, and various pastries.
I arrived here, introduced to a lawyer, and my lawyer handled the entire process. That is, the business license, all the documents, business registration, and of course, all the tests that I underwent in the hospital were all handled by the lawyer. Everything was done in Cairo. It took more than 6 months to prepare the documents. That is, naturally, they submitted a request to the Russian Federation to check everything, to see if everything was all right with my lifestyle in Russia. So that's how it is. Everything is real.
By the way, here's another Russian cafe where Egyptians shop for Napoleon cakes, honey cakes, and cabbage pies. Elena has been living in Egypt for over 10 years. She owns a travel agency, so she is very familiar with the visa application process. And regarding the documents, what does someone need to leave for Egypt? Are there any resident visas?
Well, we always look at the main rules of legislation in Egypt. That is, at the moment, all people residing in Egypt and in trans are here on the basis of a visa. What is a visa? Previously, it was a stamp that was glued into the passport. Currently, the government has made concessions to the tourism sector, and until the end of April, visas on arrival for tourist cities such as Hurghada and Sharm el-Sheikh have been cancelled. Therefore, when we arrive, a small stamp is placed in our passport, which gives us the right to stay here for a month and move freely throughout Egypt. We arrived in Sharm el-Sheikh. If you are going to Cairo, arriving in Hurghada, or traveling to Alexandria or Islamic Symbol, this stamp gives you the right to move around. This stamp replaces the visa. If you want to stay here for a second month, you must surely go to the passport office after the first month. Contact the head of the passport office. He will automatically extend your visa for the second month without any hassle. That is, you can live in Egypt for a second month, consider it free of charge. After the second month, you decide whether you want to stay here or if you will leave. If you want to stay, you submit a certain set of specific documents and receive a visa for 3 to 6 months to a year. Foreigners can stay here for up to a year without leaving.
Rental prices in Egypt depend, as everywhere, on the area and the number of square meters. The average price for renting an apartment is $200, $300.
It all depends on the number of people who will be living in the apartment. That's one. Secondly, it depends on the area. Thirdly, there are new and secondary apartments. On average, an apartment can be purchased starting from $10,000.
Not bad at all.
Furniture.
So possibly, can it be found cheaper?
You can find it, you can find it. But again, I say, if, for example, a grandmother comes, we have acquaintances who are grandmothers that come here and go to the sea. 25 square meters is more than enough for her. On average, our apartment size is 25 square meters. Therefore, please, if someone is buying, as they say, you have to wait a long time like I waited for my apartment, then you can make a very good purchase. I have friends who bought a small place in the city center for over 60, yes, without a balcony. But, roughly speaking, there is a place where you can leave your suitcases, go home, and return in 6 months, living here peacefully without worry, because having your own property is definitely a big plus.
Life in Egypt is not like ours, and those who have moved often have to get used to something new. For example, girls find it difficult to find a hairdresser who works with Slavic hair.
In Hurghada, in Sharm el-Sheikh, it's such a small village as we call ourselves, even though it's a city, but word of mouth still works, and our girls come from Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, professionals in their field who help us become even more beautiful.
In Hurghada, knowledge of the Russian language and basic English is quite sufficient for permanent residents. Almost everyone can say a few words in Russian, and those who have moved there gradually learn everyday Arabic over time, which is quite sufficient for living. But in Cairo, Russian is rare. Their knowledge of Arabic is necessary, or at least English. Absolutely everyone I spoke to said that they did not have conflicts based on different nationalities.
There are some amazing moments, truly astonishing. I once crashed a rented moped. Well, I didn't fall hard. I landed on the sand. Just a couple of scratches from the bicycle, but everything is fine. But the motorcycle was there. The moped was broken. I think what to do. I need my money back. Then you realize someone is lifting me up and carrying me somewhere. And I look around and realize that these guards, as they are called, are the ones who protect the building or just watch over the water. Just 4 people picked me up and are carrying me to the hospital because I have a broken elbow somewhere and there's a little bit of bleeding. And they are shouting, that's it, we're taking him, he has blood, bam, bam, bam. I asked them for a long time to put me in my place, to let me go, because it was more important for me to fix someone else's moped than to deal with this scrape. Secondly, I absolutely did not fear the locals. It doesn't matter how they look. They are all believers in God, which is a big plus. They all live by these commandments that we know. They will try to help you if it is really needed. At first, we couldn't understand what our driver wanted from us. He was actually the only person we met. The driver from the hotel where we stayed. When things got worse, he came and carried food like potatoes and tomatoes all week, whatever he could bring from the market. He brought it to us, and we tried to give him money, even though it was worth something. Especially in winter. You can imagine how much it costs. He refused to take a single ruble, and motivated this by saying, "Well guys, you don't know anything until you learn to live. I will help you until the end." Vladimir and Yulia felt a bit anxious during the Arab Revolution.
They were already living in Hurghada at that time and saw people lining up with bats and irons in their hands on the road, preparing to defend their property from local gangs. But the guys describe Egypt as a rather calm country for living overall. Even the local residents have a different attitude towards mass unrest compared to newcomers.
People are not panicking as we were here during the revolution when my mom called me and shouted, "Run to the store, stock up." The news was showing us everything. They dismantled Cairo. We called a friend who has a car because we need to load 4 bags of potatoes. We have 4 families and everything else is there. We are getting ready to go to the supermarket. We are filling up with televisions and we approach the checkout where there are carts and more televisions. Yes, large and crowded. And here I realize that the queue is made up entirely of Russians, even unfamiliar Russians, and an Arab gets a stick of coffee and does not understand the topic. So, Ramadan ends tomorrow, or what? They had no incidents, no one rioted in the city, no one stole anything, although everyone was very scared and prepared, as it was somehow announced in all the mosques that bad people were coming to rob. Protect your homes. And Hurghada turned into indescribable. We have the game GTA, and there is a code, give everyone weapons. So that's what it is. Then hands were up. There were fights. People walked around with sticks, clubs, bats, and machetes.
With anything at all? The prisons were filled, and they released people who apparently were not serious offenders. They even have the right to stand up. They were in rags. There was nothing to feed them, and they decided to release them.
We were all standing around us. We also even saw all the people who were standing with irons in their hands. We didn't arrive. We just didn't understand what was happening. And everyone started to scream, shout, run around, and give up. And we all united and began to build all these barricades, but nothing happened.
Are you upset no one showed up?
No, thank God, actually. We realized how Russian we are, or something like that.
Many conflicts in Egypt arise from religions. Islam is dominant, but there are also many Christians, about 8% of the population. To ensure the safety of the religious minority, Christian churches here look like fortresses. The checkpoint behind me is where I and all my belongings were thoroughly searched. In Egypt, the dress code norms for locals require women to wear clothing that covers their shoulders and legs below the knees, while men must cover their torsos and legs completely. In Egypt, these rules are equally observed by both Christians and Muslims. Islamic women also cover their heads. Both men and women among Christians can have a tattoo of a cross on the inner side of their wrist. The attitude towards women in Egypt is special. Absolutely nothing like what we have, and you can feel it from the first minutes of arrival at the airport. All women entering are given sequential numbers. In short, over there at the stand, all the names of the women who were on board are listed. Each woman approaches and she is given a number. They are numbered. Here, Tonya has room 23. What do you think about it? Sexism is unpleasant. A special attitude towards foreign women can be seen in both hotels and restaurants at the moment of service. The menu was brought, so the man could choose what we would eat, and the woman was unhappy again.
What is given is clear.
Understood. And these are our observations about the attitude towards Tona in the hotel. We were eating together, so I finished my meal, and he came, took my food. Tona had nibbled on something there, but he took all her food, only after she started to protest. Did he say, "Oh, didn't you want everything?" and put back something that he hadn't taken yet?
What is your opinion?
He grew hungry, so he was left cold.
The coffee was delicious. Why didn't they bring you any?
I need to ask you because I am Zhenya. They are waiting for you to finish your coffee so we can go, but they don't even bring it to me. I refuse it.
Honestly, you get used to such an attitude. And I have already started to practice sexism on tone myself. Dance for the internet. Right now, it worked. Of course, for us it's just a joke, but the locals have always lived this way. In this Bedouin village, for example, there are no women on the street at all. Meanwhile, my Egyptian acquaintance Mustafa is trying to assess Tona in terms of the number of camels. And how much can you really, negotiate for approximately 50 camels? 50 camels in total. Yes, let me tell you, it's closed. I'm that valuable. The overall experience was amazing. From this trip, I brought back many cool photos and short stories, which I have saved on my Instagram in the highlights. You can see where I am filming now on my Instagram, and I respond there more often, so follow me and we will be a bit closer. Let's move 300 kilometers south of Hurghada. This is Marsa Alam, another tourist region, but there are very few people here. Mainly hotels and fishing villages inhabited by Bedouins. There are checkpoints and signs of civilization are few. Even in such places, Russian speakers settle. Olga left Moscow and lives here long term.
I came from Moscow 12 years ago. How from Moscow? I have been diving since 2005. And I first came to Marsa Alam back then. I fell in love. There are many turtles and dugongs. The underwater world is unique. Then I moved to work at Hilton. Now I have been working under its aegis for many years. I am officially married. I have citizenship.
Is your husband Egyptian?
He has been a local resident for 20 years. I have been here for over 10 years. It's quiet in Marsa Alam and we don't want to leave. It's not interesting. We go to the sea like it's a wall. We swim with the dolphins. Amazing beaches, no people.
They say that one is always drawn back to their homeland, especially those who have left it forever. I asked the guys if they regret leaving and what they think there is more of in life in Egypt, the pros or the cons.
To be honest, looking back, it's been 7 years. Actually, we have been living here for almost 12 years. You see, the business is being established during this time. Looking back, I realized that there are many more advantages here. If you have children, that's certainly even better. Your child will grow up in a multilingual environment.
Everywhere has its pros and cons.
Let's go through the pros and cons.
Look, there is its own nature, a unique climate, probably. Here, there is a complete absence of civilization.
It's warmth, it's sunshine, it's indeed the sea. It's freedom, it's the freedom to act. Here, life in Hurghada and in Egypt in general feels somehow slower and less fleeting compared to, for example, life in Moscow or Tyumen. Everything here is somehow calm and convenient. I manage my time myself, in the sea and in the cold, harsh climate.
Compatriots love Egypt for its warmth, unique climate with stunning seas, and the opportunity to slow down a bit and view life with a clear, open perspective, unclouded by the frantic work race from Monday to Friday. Of course, Egypt is primarily a place where one can escape cheaply from our gray winter while still not being too far from home. Subscribe to my YouTube and Instagram, and remember that now videos on the Vova channel are released every Saturday. Bye.